Duker do a roll call, please, of all the authority members.
Sure, Chair Randall. Chair Randall,
Present.
Mayor Parrish,
Here.
Chairman McKay,
Here.
Chair Wheeler, Board Member Crystal, Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Council Member Snyder, Mayor Rochelle,
Here.
Mayor Maya,
Here.
Ms. Hines, Delegate Rum,
Here.
Mr. Cope, Mayor Wood,
Present.
Ms. Pebble, Mr. Horsley,
Here.
and I believe we have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, and I know Miss Crystal was on before, and so she may be trying to get back on, but she was on for the public hearing. So let's just watch for Miss Crystal, because I didn't hear her come back on, but I know she's trying.
She's
oh,
on.
back on. Okay,
She's
I'm gonna
on.
say here. All right.
Oh, folks, I'm sorry. Chair Randall, I'm so sorry. I'm here. I had also muted my phone in addition to the platform. I am here.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. So the first thing we have to do, the first action item is adoption of the resolution that I read before we start the public hearing, which I am not reading again. It is in your packet. So I move that we adopt resolution 20-10 to find need to conduct meetings by electronic communication means during the governor's declared state of emergency during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Chair Randall, this is Hal Parrish. I second the motion.
Motion is made by Chair Randall, seconded by Vice Chair Parrish. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I need to do a roll call vote for this motion, and so hopefully I will grab everybody. If I don't, I'll get to you afterwards, because this needs a roll call vote. Mayor Parrish,
Yes.
Chairman McKay,
Aye.
Chair Wheeler, Mayor, Board Member Crystal,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Aye.
Councilman Member Snyder. He's not present. Mayor Rischel.
Yes.
Mayor Meyer.
Yes.
Ms. Hines.
Yes.
Delegate Rome.
Yes.
Ms. Kolb. Is he not on? He is on, right? Mr. Kolb, can you hear me?
He said yes.
He said yes? I didn't hear the yes, okay. Mayor Wood. Mayor Wood?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, he doesn't vote, that's right. I'm sorry, Derek, you don't vote. You're not important. Ms. Curvo, does she vote? And so the other three don't vote, right? Okay. And I am a yes. 1, 2. So that motion will pass 11-0-1 with one person who was absent for the vote. All right. The next agenda item is adoption of regional revenue funds. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the minutes of the meeting. Let's back up. Thank you. Did everyone who was at the last minute see the minutes from the last meeting? Are there any changes to the minutes from the last meeting?
Chair Randall.
Yes, sir.
I move that the minutes of the March 12th meeting of the MBTA be approved.
Chair Randall, I second that motion.
And the motion made to approve minutes by Mr. Parrish and seconded by Ms. Rischel. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, and of course, if you weren't there, you can just abstain. Please say aye.
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 Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Aye.
whoa, 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 whoa. No. No. Mayor Parrish.
Aye.
Chairman McKay.
Abstain.
Okay. Chair Wheeler.
Aye.
Board Member Crystal.
Aye.
Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
Councilman Snyder is not here. Mayor Rischel.
Yes.
Mayor Meyer.
Yes.
Mr. Hines.
Ms. Hines, yes.
Ms. Hines, I'm sorry, Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Rome was not here,
Abstain.
so abstain. Mr. Kolb. He said, yes, I can't hear him. Okay, so that motion will pass 9-0. I'm sorry, 10-0-1-1. I'm sorry, 10-0-1-2. So that motion will pass. The next action item is the adoption of regional revenue funds, revenue projection update. Mayor Parrish, the Finance Committee, do you have anything you want to say on this item?
I do, Chair Randall. First of all, let me thank the members of the Finance Committee. Normally, we would be meeting next week, but because of the need to move forward with the next several items on our agenda tonight, at tonight's authority meeting, we moved that meeting of the Finance Committee to last Friday. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being able to be involved in that meeting. It was the first meeting of the Finance Committee in a virtual manner. And again, thank you for being there. Did a lot of work, and I'm going to put Mike Longy to work tonight very briefly. But I will say that with regard to the adoption of the Regional Revenue Fund, the revenue projection update, there was a lot of work done by staff. And Mike's going to get into that just a little bit, but I want to let you know that we're making the initial projections for the 2024-25 revenue, and table 1 shows the ultimate outcome of that, but there are a number of tables that play into that, and I'll ask Mike to help us briefly with each of those.
Mayor Parrish, Chairman Randall. Table 1, as the mayor noted, represents $1.8 billion in revenue for the 6 years of this revised estimates for 2020 through 23 and the proposed estimates for 24 and 25. 540 million of that will go into 30% distributions around the region. I'm going to move through just the highlights. On the background, you have a lot of work represented in front of you of factors that we used to come up with these estimates. Obviously, they're all centered around the COVID-19 pandemic. To boil it down, the recovery, because we will have a recovery at some point, has been questioned as to whether it'll be a V, a U, an L, or W. I think there's other alphabet or other letters coming into play now. I would characterize what the finance team came up with is a W with a swish. So kind of the tail end of the W will swish out a little bit. Moving through the revenues in turn, and again, the highlights of them, sales tax, I will note that we used GDP figures, national GDP figures, so that we could tap into the information coming from some of the best economic houses, underwriting banks, et cetera, around the country. Of course, national GDP is not representative of the regional GDP. So we converted the national numbers to the regional numbers and then used information from, say, George Mason's Fuller Institute to kind of make that correlation. That process and the other details that are listed in here were kind of backed up with sales tax experience from 1994 through 2019, fiscal 94 through 2019. We then did a multi-shock analysis on it to kind of come up with the estimates that are in front of you. Looking at table 2, the sales tax estimates for 2020 through 25, you can see that we took what I would characterize as a COVID hit of about 174 million in sales tax. We do reflect the internet sales tax starting in 2020, and that certainly has helped these estimates. By 2022, we've just kind of wrapped the internet because it's not broken out separately in the data that we get. We wrapped it into the overall sales tax number. Moving on to the corridor, I-81 corridor funds, we use the same metrics that we use for sales tax, but in addition, we found information on the freight truck spot market. And what was really interesting there is that market, which handles most of the truck freight nationwide, took a 70% reduction in a matter of weeks. Looking at table 3, though, we start with the first projection from VDOT, which I think everybody knew was supposed to be $10 million in 2020, reaching $20 million in 2022, and basically growing at a fairly small rate from that point on. VDOT came back and revised the projections. We didn't get a revised projection for 2020, but the 21 through 23 revisions were pretty significant. 21 was reduced by 64%, and 22 and 23 were reduced by 44, 45%. However, our estimates are based not on the VDOT estimates. We are basing them on the actual remittances that we are receiving, and we are taking increases because of the phased-in approach of those revenues. We did take their phased-in approach, but the estimates that we are using are based on actual receipts. You can see that we have a COVID impact of 4.8 million, and there is a table at the very end that will kind of look at the new revenue sources and the impact of COVID and these VDOT changes on those revenue sources as we get to the end. Grantor's tax, the NVTA estimates and the state estimates were very closely aligned. The concern with the grantor's tax, which is obviously based on real estate sales, and for the tax you need a volume of sales and you need value in the property. So the governor phased in the implementation in 21 due to COVID, which has a COVID impact of $15 million. Then on top of that, we took estimates again, not only using the same data as for sales tax, but also the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors and a lot of commercial real estate projections. I think our biggest concern in this estimate is the long-term COVID impact on the commercial real estate sector, especially since that sector is largely office buildings in Northern Virginia. And for there, we are looking at about a $20.4 million COVID impact on that revenue line. The final revenue that the General Assembly implemented in the 2020 session was a transfer of $20 million. Since that is a straight transfer, there is no economic impact due to COVID. There's also no growth. So that $20 million is effectively going to lose value as purchasing power each year. But unless there is some change made on a legislative budget amendment, we should have no impact on that revenue line. Looking at table 5, you can see that what we've laid out here is COVID-19 and the restoration summary. So again, we have the initial projections for I-81, $10 million to approximately $20 million. We have grantor starting at 30 in 21. And then we have the transfer of $20 million. Down below that, you can see the impact of the VDOT estimate change. For 2020, we are looking at a $7.2 million reduction. Then on top of that, $600,000 for COVID. For the remainder of the years, you can see how it's laid out in the table. But what this shows you is that the VDOT estimate changes on the 81 revenue actually had a worse impact than COVID on those revenue lines. And what I think is very important about this is this information only started coming out in March of this year, pretty much after the General Assembly session had ended. So even during the 2020 General Assembly session, I-81 was discussed as a $20 million revenue line, even though it was phasing up to $20 million over a couple of years. What actually has happened now with those changes is we are looking at a $47.8 million reduction. $35.5 million of that reduction is directly related to the VDOT revenue estimate changes. A little over 12 million of that reduction, 12.3 million, is basically induced uncertainty. because we cannot take their future projections. We are going to use the actual revenue stream that we are seeing coming in versus another round of potential errors. With that, we'll move back to table one. Table one is the table that the motion is based on. And I would be happy to take any questions on this at this point.
To move this forward, as each of us knows, the items that we have on the agenda tonight feed from one to the other. And this is the first item. This table one is an important piece of getting to the, it feeds into the PAYGO determination, which we'll do next. So I move that the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority adopt the FY 2020 to FY 2025 revenue projections presented in the table one that we have before us.
Motion from Mayor Parrish. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second, Madam Chair, this is Katie Crystal.
Second from Ms. Crystal. Discussion on the motion. Mayor Parrish, do you have any discussion?
Nothing to add.
Chairman McKay, do you have any discussion? Chairman McKay, discussion?
Discussion. I'm good.
Chair Wheeler?
Good.
Board Member Crystal?
Madam Chair.
Mayor Wilson?
Nope.
Councilmember Snyder?
No questions, Madam Chair. And just for the record, I was on by phone for the first two votes, but was muted centrally and wasn't able to participate in those. So the record.
Thank you, and thank you. Mayor Rischel?
No questions. And I
Meyer?
also want to emphasize and agree with Hal that congratulations to staff. A lot of work went into this. Thank you.
Mr. Meyer?
No comments.
Ms. Hayes? Ms. Hines, I'm
Madam
sorry.
Chair.
Delegate Rome?
No additional comments. I watched the Finance Committee meeting the other day, so I appreciate it. Thanks.
Mr. Kolb? I still can't hear him. I don't know why. I have a question. Mr. Longi, when do we go to the ratings agencies?
We would just have a regular surveillance. We're probably a year out from that.
So much of what has happened with NVTA and our finances have not been the cause of NVTA recently. I mean, it just hasn't. What happened to General Assembly last year, the I-81, and obviously COVID. And I am much less worried about the effects of COVID than I am the I-81 money not coming in. Because once again, the issue with an organization like NVTA is that we are subject to another body's votes and whims and things like that. So piggybacking on what happened as far as the decreasing of our money from the General Assembly, was that last year or 2 years ago? That was 2 years ago. And now the I-81 money, is there something we should be doing right now to make sure that we keep the triple double A plus? Because I'm getting a little concerned at this point.
Yes, Chair Randall, since the authority never programmed that money until potentially this evening, there's no need to, publicize reductions or anything else.
It wasn't real, okay.
Yeah, we have the fortune of timing on that. We caught the problem because the authority was the canary in the coal mine that revenue isn't coming in as projected.
Okay, that's a very good answer. All right, wonderful. All right, so let's take a vote on this item. Mayor Parrish?
Yes.
Chairman McKay? I'm gonna call you all. This is the same order I'm gonna call you every time, so just be ready for that. Chairman McKay, you there?
Aye.
Chair Wheeler?
Aye.
Board Member Crystal?
Aye.
Mayor Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Rischel?
Yes.
Mayor Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Hines?
Yes.
Delegate Rome?
Yes.
And Mr. Kolb? We still can't hear. Can you all hear him?
No, I can't hear him.
He's a thumbs up. Okay, we're going to take the thumb up signal and we're going to say that is a 12-0 vote in favor. So that's what we're going to say. Mr. Parrish, would you like to go to the next item, please?
Thank you. We're on to item number 6, which is the adoption of the 2024-2025 PAYGO determination for the 6-year program update. And the PAYGO determination process refines the gross amount of regional revenue funds projected to be available. And again, the Finance Committee, and I should have mentioned this earlier in what we took up last, the Finance Committee worked very closely with our staff and made a unanimous recommendation that this be approved or at least recommended to the authority. And Mr. Long may wish to have a few comments here.
Thank you, Mayor Parrish, Chair Randall. I would move to just highlight section 4 on page 2 of the staff report, which is the key assumptions. The finance team made a series of assumptions which, while not in conflict with any policies, are a temporary departure from our prior practices. And in order to keep our external auditors happy, since we forward appropriate so much money, I would like to walk through those. First of all, with the Finance Committee's approval, we released $30.3 million in revenue taper funds. The taper is something that the Finance Committee put in place when we adopted the first 6-year program, just because of unknowable risks when you adopt a 6-year program. I think COVID-19 certainly fits that definition, and it's the time to basically pull those funds into productive use. Previously, we've relied on audited fund balances to increase available PAYGO. This time, we are proposing an addition of $47.5 million in projected unaudited balances. And these are all measures that actually will get us to a larger level of PAYGO than we would have been able to put forward otherwise. The current audited fund balance of $52.5 million is completely deployed to support the 2020-2023 and remaining years of the 6-year program. That was very important for the finance team to make sure that we did not have to reduce any projects. A big portion of that carry forward or audited fund balance, or $18.3 million, is attributed to the performance of the investment portfolio, which is reflective of the subscription services that the Finance Committee recommended and the authority approved for our use. Those services cost about $46,000 a year, and with that, we've been able to create an increased revenue line of $18 million. All of the future cost estimates that go into PAYGO, because we are basically estimating things that are going to happen in 6 years, so we're relying on our 5-year strategic plan and stuff like that. Those are very conservative cost estimates, in keeping with our prior practices. I think it's important to mention risk mitigation. If you remember, we had talked about the 2-year update potentially having $400 million available to it. In working with the Finance Committee and in working with the chair and vice chair of the committee, we felt it was time to make sure that the authority did its part to keep employment up, to keep transportation infrastructure moving forward, and to put as much on the table as we felt was prudent, and potentially, I think I've heard it referred to as reasonable and responsible. So I do want to note that we have 4 quivers, or 4 arrows in our quiver, just in case anything goes wrong. The first one is we've not touched the working capital reserve of $120 million. So Chair Randall, to your point on the rating agencies, I think that's a very strong sign to the rating agencies. We also recommended no early appropriation for 24 and 25 revenues. That means that we'll wait 12 months, and then depending upon how the economic picture looks, we may come back to the project sponsors and say, okay, if you can use this money earlier, we'll follow the same practice that we did in the 6-year program. I'm just reluctant to recommend that out of the gate until because nobody nobody has a good handle of what the next 12 months are going to provide for us economically. Also, remember, NVTA staff can use the SPA Appendix Bs, which are the project cash flows, to help manage our liquidity position. And finally, the final arrow is the fact that due to our high credit rating, due to our strong reserves and the prudent management of the finances by the authority, were we to need to go to the credit markets, I think we would be well received. That is not something we're proposing. We've done everything we can to avoid that, and I don't think we'll need that. That'll be the final arrow, but it is still there. The authority has approximately a $1.6 billion debt capacity, which clearly is a very strong position to be in. So with that, we'll move back to table 1. And in table 1, you can see how we are keeping the current 6-year program going, which is extremely important. Not only that, we're able to bring in another $122 million into the 2-year update while absorbing approximately $240 million in revenue reductions. And with that, I'll turn it back to Mayor Parrish.
Make a motion.
I would like to make a motion, Chair Randall. We're getting closer to be able to really do some good things. And in table 1, you can see the number that Monica talked about earlier tonight, the 522 million to be utilized. And so I'd like to move that the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority adopt a pay-go funding recommendation detailed in table 1.
Madam Chair, I second that motion.
Motion is made by Mayor Parrish, seconded by Mayor Rischel. Discussion on the motion. Mayor Parrish?
No discussion other than the committee last week voted unanimously to move this forward.
Chairman McKay? Every time. Chairman McKay?
No discussion.
Thank you. Chair Wheeler?
No discussion.
Board Member Crystal?
No discussion.
Mayor Wilson?
Nope.
Councilmember Snyder?
No discussion.
Mayor Rischel?
No, ma'am.
Mayor Meyer?
No, no discussion.
Thank you. Ms. Hines? Ms. Rome?
No discussion.
Mr. Kolb?
No discussion.
Oh, there you are. Wow, there you are. Very good.
Headphones.
There you go. You know what? I don't have any discussion, but I am so happy to hear that we're not going to touch the reserve, because that is probably the most important thing, is that we don't have to touch the reserve. So that's very good news. All right. All in favor, please say aye. Mayor Parrish.
Aye.
Chairman McKay.
Aye.
Chair Wheeler.
Aye.
Board Member Crystal.
Aye.
Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Snyder.
Aye.
Mayor Rischel.
Yes.
Mayor Meyer.
Yes.
Ms. Hines.
Yes.
Delegate Rome.
Aye.
Ms. Cope. Mr. Cope, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion will pass 12-0. On to the next item, number 6, Mr. Parrish.
Chair Randall, turn this thing on. Chair Randall, this is where the rubber meets the road. And we've been working item number 5, item number 6, and we've been getting to this point where we can actually move forward with some projects. And Chair Randall, you're the chair of the planning programming committee, right? I actually think you ought to make this motion.
Talk about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. No, I found it. I have found it. I move the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority adopt the pay-go funding recommendation detailed in table 1 below.
Second.
Okay, second.
Made by Chair Randall, seconded by, I think I heard Mr. McKay come in there.
There you go.
Good.
There we go. Seconded by Mr. McKay. Discussion, does anyone, do you have the staff have anything to add on this motion? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I read the wrong motion? Wait a minute. Okay, Mr. Parrish is gonna have this. There we go. Okay. I move.
Please update the screen.
Huh?
I was asking Dev to please
Transportation
update the
Authority
screen.
appropriate 182.5 million of FY 2021 regional revenue funds for the 7 projects in the FY 2018 to FY 2023 6-year program as detailed in table 1 below. Mr. McKay, that's your second. Okay, I'm going to count that second to Mr. McKay. All right, discussion on that motion. I have none. Mayor Parrish.
Yes.
Discussion on the motion? No. Mr. McKay, discussion on the motion?
No discussion.
Chair Wheeler, discussion on the motion? Board Member Crystal? Mayor Wilson?
Nope.
Councilmember Snyder?
Hold on just a second. I'm probably going to have to get off, but I do appreciate you giving me a heads up. How late are you going to be up?
Mr. Snyder, are you talking to us? Okay. I don't know who that was.
Meyer.
That was Mr. Meyer? Okay. Councilmember Snyder, discussion on the motion? Mr. Snyder, are you still with us?
I am, but I can't get through.
We heard you then. We heard you then. Mayor Bishop, discussion on the motion.
None.
Mr. Meyer, is that you? Are you getting off? Are you still there?
I'm here. No comments.
Ms.
No
Hayes,
discussion.
Hines. Ms. Hines?
I'm fine.
Delegate Rome?
Actually, I do have a couple things I'd like to ask about. The first part here is that, is this going to basically be an entire block vote for all 6, or yeah, it looks like all 6 of the items that we're actually appropriating here?
Are you actually moving, are you actually asking, are we moving all 6 in the block?
Yeah, are you moving all 6 in block?
We are.
Okay, and then the question here is on 2018-031 or 032-01, Madam Chair, just to note the Prince William County project on this, because, and maybe Chairwoman Wheeler could speak to this as well, because the county right now is pursuing a different environmental assessment strategy compared to where we were last year, where now they're bringing something new back to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on this. My question is basically, if the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers ultimately denies the project in terms of Godwin Drive extended, does the money that we are appropriating here stay with the MVTA, or does it stay over with Prince William County? And then what happens to that money upon that allocation if it's denied by the feds?
So the way MBTA works, any money that doesn't stay goes to Loudoun.
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear it.
It goes to Loudoun County.
Thank you, Chair Randall. So first, Delegate Rome, what I would say is that the money that's allocated to the project that's scheduled to be appropriated this evening, any changes to this must be in adherence to the adopted scope of work. If there is a change to the scope of work, and I don't have the document in front of me at this time, then we'll have to talk to the county regarding how we are going to pursue the next steps with the project. Regarding the money staying, the authority pays on a reimbursement basis. So we make sure that the receipts or the invoices that we're paying are in coincide with the scope of work. So to answer your question, if there is no upfront money, it's all on a reimbursement basis.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes that a little. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. And Madam Chair, if I could ask Chairwoman Wheeler if she'd like to basically kind of weigh in about where that project is in terms of Rick Canizales. I know, has he brought this back to the board recently, and basically what's going to end up coming up from this?
No, he has not, and I'd hate to give out wrong information, so I will get you that information offline. I would hate to speak non-intelligently about it. So
that's appropriated for 2021, right?
Yeah.
That's appropriate for 2021. Okay. All right. So Ms. Backman's right. So we don't, in MVTA, we do a reimbursement. So we There's very rarely where we have to claw back money that's been paid out because it's all reimbursed anyway. I mean, I think it's happened once since I've been here. It just doesn't happen very much. So now, having said that, since you guys said that, please keep us aware of that project. If you learn anything new. Okay. So all in favor of the motion made by Chair Randall and seconded by Chairman McKay, please say aye. Mayor Parrish.
Aye.
Chairman McKay.
Aye.
Chair Wheeler.
Aye.
Board Member Crystal.
Aye.
Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Snyder.
Aye.
Mayor Rischel.
Yes.
Mayor Meyer.
Yes.
Ms. Hines.
Yes.
Delegate Rome.
Yes.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
And I am an aye. That motion will pass 12-0. We heard everybody that time. That is great. All right, on to the next item, which is the item number 7, the 2020. No. Where am I? I'm sorry. Item number 8, transaction contract amendment number 6. Item number 8. Mr. Longi.
Thank you, Chair Randall. Keith Jasper is also here to talk about the particulars of this contract amendment. I'll cover the fact that the existing transaction contract always perceived that some additional work orders would come in. This amendment is actually well within what is the remaining balance of the budget. I think the planning team is completing a 5-year contract, and they didn't hit the contingency on it. And even so, this $50,000 wouldn't even hit the contingency either. So it's been a very well managed contract from a fiscal basis for the 5-year period. With that, I'll turn it over to Keith to speak to the actual work being done through this amendment.
Thanks, Mike. Chair Randall, members of the authority, we find ourselves at an interesting point in time with the pandemic, and that's presented obviously many people with challenges, but there's from the planning perspective, there's some opportunities here as well. And what we're looking at with this task will be to do some additional what we call scenario analysis, or you might think of it as sensitivity analysis or testing. And this will allow us to explore a number of scenarios using our transportation model and under the auspices of our responsibility for developing the long-range transportation plan for Northern Virginia transaction, which we're in the process of just ramping up to the next 5-year update right now. But this piece of work will help us greatly understand how various scenarios might play out from a transportation perspective. We are separately but in parallel working with the business community to understand some of the policies and practices that have worked for them during the pandemic with respect to work from home policies, and trying to get an understanding as to what the work from home policies might look like over the coming months and potentially years as a result of what's been learned by them during this time. If there's one silver lining to the pandemic that we've observed is the reduction in congestion, which is obviously something to emphasize in keeping with what the business community is talking to us about potentially doing themselves. This is very timely. As I mentioned, we're in the ramp up to transactions. So doing this now helps us to get valuable information to feed into the next transaction update while it's still fresh and while people are thinking about their next steps. Be happy to take any questions if there's any.
Thank you. How about I make a motion and we have discussion within the motion so we can move this along. How's that sound? I move the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority approve of the attached transaction contract amendment, COVID-19 2020 travel behavior in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Is there a second on the motion?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Motion's made and seconded by Delegate Rome. Discussion on the motion. Mr. McKay.
No discussion.
Hold on, because I've lost my sheet. Okay. Ms. Wheeler.
No discussion.
Ms. Crystal.
No discussion.
Mr. Wilson.
Nothing.
Mr. Snyder.
I do have a question. Because things are moving very rapidly, is this a one-time snapshot, or does this give us the opportunity to take various snapshots? For example,
That's a really good question.
We're really shut down now. The hope is that we open up, you know, in due speed, and that we get the economy, you know, actually operating again, as opposed to being in a depression, which is what we are now. So my question goes back to, is this a one-time thing, or does this authorize kind of a moving view of things?
Okay, Mr. Jasper, would you like to answer that question?
Thank you, Councilmember Snyder, for the question. If I understand it correctly, the task is fairly limited in scope, schedule, and budget. But I think in terms of, you know, is it a snapshot or does it continue? I think really the answer to that question is yes, it is. The work that we're going to be doing with transaction, which obviously is going to take a couple of years once the consultant team is on board. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
To answer your question, you have a follow-up question.
No, I think it does answer the question.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rischel? Mr. Meyer?
None.
Ms. Hines?
No questions.
Ms. Roan?
No question.
Ms. Cope?
No questions.
Mayor Parrish?
Nothing.
All right, let's do a vote. Motion made by Chair Randall, seconded by Delegate Rome. All in favor, Chairman McKay?
Aye.
Chair Wheeler?
Aye.
Board Member Crystal?
Aye.
Mayor Wilson?
Aye.
Councilman Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Rischel?
Yes.
Mayor Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Hines?
Yes.
Delegate Rome?
Aye.
Ms. Cope?
Aye.
Mayor Parrish?
Chair Randall, I abstain.
All right, that motion will pass 11-0-1 with one abstention. Mr. Parrish is abstaining on that item. Next item, and I will actually come when time for a motion. I will come to Chair Wheeler for the motion. It's item number 9, approval of scope change for Prince William County's Route 234 Ballsboro Road Interchange Project. Funded through concession CPAC. Ms. Backman.
Make an amendment.
Thank you, Chair Randall.
So Ms. Wheeler, we're not ready for a motion yet, but when we are, I'll come to you for a motion or amendment to the motion.
Thank you, Chair Randall, and I will be brief, Chair Wheeler. As you all will recall, VDOT received a concessionaire payment of $500 million as part of the Transform 66 Outside the Beltway project. The authority was asked to make programming recommendations on that $500 million. And I want to remind everyone that the allocations must be limited to programs and projects that are reasonably expected to or benefit the users of the qualifying transportation facility. And I would like to also note that on July 13th of 2017, the authority adopted a list of projects for CTB approval because the law does require that the CTB be the entity that officially approves how these funds are used and on which projects. I will note that Prince William County's Ballsford Road at 234 interchange project was included in the list of recommended projects that the authority approved. On December 6th of 2017, the CTB did endorse the authority's list of projects. And then in January 2020, bringing it a little current, Prince William County actually received a bid for a contract that was approximately left the $40 million. It was $40 million less than what they had anticipated. So Prince William is actually requesting an expanded scope approval which would expand the project approximately 3,000 feet or a little over half a mile to terminate at University Boulevard. It's understood that the new termini for the project is based on existing and future projects in the area. And Prince William County is proposing to fund the project scope change, which is estimated at $20 million in existing project funds. And I will note that I believe that that's what Chair Wheeler would like to speak to in regards to this motion. The last thing I will say is that the RJAC did review this and recommended authority approval of the expansion in scope at their April 23rd meeting. The Regional and Jurisdiction Agency and Coordinating Committee.
Thank you very much.
I mean, Chair Wheeler, would you like to make a motion or make a motion that may be amended because of the package?
I would like to just amend the package with an amendment being, we expected the extension of the termini to be $20 million and give the rest back. We now believe, after looking at it in some other analysis, it will be $25 million and still returning $15 million of the concessionaire's funds.
All right, so you have to actually make the motion though.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority approve item 9A as amended, which is the approval of the scope of changes for Prince William County's Route 234 Ballsford Road Interchange Project funded with concessionaire payment funds.
With the amendment.
As amended, correct.
As amended, yes. Is there a second on the motion?
I'd like to second my friend's motion.
All right, so that motion was made by Chair Wheeler and seconded by Mayor Parrish. Discussion on the motion, Chair Wheeler.
I'm good.
Okay, Mr. McKay? Discussion on the motion, Mr. McKay.
Discussion.
Board Member Crystal.
No discussion.
Mayor Wilson.
Discussion.
Councilmember Snyder.
No discussion.
Mayor Rischel.
None.
Mr. Meyer.
No discussion.
Ms. Hines.
Madam Chairman, I'm going to abstain from this because I have to vote on it when it comes to CTV.
Okay, so this is just a discussion. I'll come when
I'm just letting you know.
All right, sounds good. Delegate Rome.
Brief discussion. If I can just get, Madam Chair, if I can just get staff to clarify about whether this is for the Sudley and Ballsport's portion of 234, or if we're talking about the 234 bypass at the divergent Diamond interchange. Is this?
We're talking about the extension of the Ballsport interchange that comes up to Wellington, and it will now, to Wellington and Devlin, and it will now go down Devlin Road to University. We have an existing project at the bottom of University going up that we spent tens of millions of dollars, and now we're $100 million coming in. We're a half mile short between those two projects.
Right. So this is on the Parkway portion of it, as opposed to Sudley. I mean, when we're dealing with Route 234 and print, I just always want to clarify that. So that's fine. And this is right up
bypass. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is going right in and out of my district. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Kolb. Discussion on the motion.
No discussion.
All right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. McKay.
Aye.
Chair Wheeler.
Aye.
Board Member Crystal. Ms. Crystal.
Aye.
Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Snyder.
Aye.
Mayor Rischel.
Yes.
Mayor Meyer.
Yes.
Ms. Hines. Hayes.
Abstain.
Delegate Rome.
Aye.
Mr. Kolb.
Aye.
Mayor Parrish.
Aye.
And I am an aye also, so that motion will pass 11-01 with Ms. Hines abstaining on the motion. Thank you. The last action item is item number 10, approval of the endorsement for Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William County Bills application that I cannot find in the package.
Chair Randall, 3 localities have requested authority endorsement of their better utilizing investments to leverage development transportation grants. We received letters of endorsement requests from Prince William, Fairfax, and Loudoun counties. The projects are for the Richmond Highway BRT in Fairfax County, Loudoun County's Waxpool Road at Loudoun County Parkway Interchange Project, and Prince William County's Route 28 project. With your endorsement, a letter will be sent to Secretary Chow requesting that these projects are funded. And I do note that the applications must be submitted by May the 18th.
By May 18th. Wow. It's a 4 days from now. Yeah. Wow. So I guess we won't be tabling this item. So let's go to discussion on a motion, and then have discussion within the motion. And Chairman McKay, would you like to make this motion?
I would, Madam Chairman. I move approval.
No, sorry, you gotta say the motion, sir. You have it in front of you?
I do not have it in front of me. I was gonna just move approval of item number 10.
I'm just gonna, you move approve, I'm gonna say it for you just so you have it. Chairman McKay just moved to the authority endorse the endorsement of Fairfax County Richmond Highway BRT project, Loudoun County Waxpool Road, and Loudoun County Parkway project, and Prince William County Route 28 project for bill grant program funding, and I am happy to second that motion. Discussion on that motion. Chairman McKay, do you have discussion on the motion, sir?
No discussion.
Chair Wheeler.
Discussion.
Mayor, Board Member Crystal.
No, ma'am.
Mayor Wilson.
Nothing.
Councilman Snyder.
No discussion.
Mayor Rischel.
No, ma'am.
Mayor Meyer.
No discussion.
Ms. Hines.
Nothing.
Delegate Rome.
No.
Mr. Kolb.
No discussion.
Mr. Parrish.
Thank you, Chair Randall.
And I have no discussion either. So this is all in favor. Please say aye. Mr. McKay.
Aye.
I seconded. Chair Wheeler.
Aye.
Board Member Crystal.
Aye.
Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
Councilman Member Snyder.
Aye.
Mayor Rischel.
Yes.
Mayor Meyer.
Aye.
Ms. Hines. Ms. Hines.
Aye.
Delegate Rome.
Aye.
Mr. Kolb.
Aye.
Mayor Parrish.
Yes.
And I am an aye as well. That motion will pass 12-0. That is all of our action items, authority members. We do have legislative update from Ms. Bernard from Magaria Woods. Tracy, how are you? How are you doing? Hope you're taking care of yourself. And we're ready for your update.
I'm fine. I'm isolated. The memo in front of the members, you saw it in your packet. There's nothing different that you've not heard from your liaisons. Just a recap of what happened in the session, our $50 million. And that's all I have, Madam Chair. I can answer any questions.
Okay, board members, authority members, if you have questions for our consultant, Chairman McKay, do you have questions?
No questions.
Chair Wheeler.
No questions.
Board Member Crystal.
No, thank you for that very concise report.
Mayor Wilson.
Nothing. Thank you.
Councilmember Snyder.
No discussion, thanks.
Mayor Rischel.
No questions.
Mayor Meyer.
No discussion.
Ms. Hines.
No discussion.
Ms. Rome.
No discussion on these fabulous bills.
Mr. Kolb.
No discussion.
Mayor Parrish.
Good job tonight.
So I would say my only discussion is a couple things. One, welcome to the authority, to our new authority members, of which Ms. Rome is one of them, and the other one is Delegate Watts, who could not join us today, but thank you. Welcome. It's a fantastic organization that does very good work. The staff is amazing, just absolutely amazing. They're small but mighty. I would also say that over the past, this has been a tough year because a couple of reasons. One, because we coming up on what happened last year with the authority money, part of what we were supposed to see to recoup that money was the I-81 money that feel like it changed every 2 weeks, how much I-81 money was going to come in, kept changing. And as we were looking, as Mr. Longy was looking, as Ms. Backman was looking, I was looking at what they were saying was going to come. It was like, there's no way that we're going to meet that number. Just absolutely no way. And so the money that we hoped to recoup did not come in. But the good news was much of the money that we are going to recoup is state revenue money. And that was one of our two big things, is that we needed a high percentage of state revenue money. I am always concerned when we have money in the bank in MBTA because it came out one time. I am very worried that it would be seen as a piggy bank for next time. And I will say, Tracy, I will continue to push during next legislative session that there is some protective language around MBTA money. I know that that language won't stop anything for sure, but it certainly would have to give them pause if we have some language or some kind of fail trigger in there or something. Because what happened 2 years ago, I think if it happened again, there's no way it won't impact our credit rating. So those things. And lastly, I would say, Tracy, you were just amazing this year. I don't know how many times you went up and down 95. Thank you so much for all the work we've done, all the work you did this year on the budget. Really, really, really appreciate it. And that is all I have. We have 3 more information, well, a finance information item that has 3 parts to it. Mayor Parrish and then Mr. Longy.
Okay, I'll make this very, very quick. As I mentioned earlier, the Finance Committee met several weeks early, including obviously last Friday. So let me let the Finance Committee know that we will not have a meeting next week. We will not have a meeting next week. And furthermore, I'd like to let the Finance Committee know, as well as the authority members know, that I have been in some discussion with Mr. Garber from PB Mayors, our auditors, and the Finance Committee effectively works as the audit committee as well. And of course, he wants to make sure that there's effective two-way communication between the firm as well as individual members of the authority and the authority itself. So if there are ever any concerns, I hope you'll let me know. And obviously let Mr. Garber know. I don't expect any, but he is there in case we need him as part of his responsibilities. The investments are in very good shape compared to what is happening in the world. The Finance Committee went through the monthly revenue report and the operating budget report as well, and I have nothing to add.
I'll go through the, Mr. Longy, do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Longy or Mr. Parrish? Seeing none, I'm going to go to the Executive Director's report, Ms. Backman.
Thank you, Chair Randall. The only thing I would note in my report is that item 7 says the Virginia Transit Association Annual Conference. That was to be held July 8th. We did receive notification that the conference has been canceled due to COVID. Thank you.
Is it rescheduled or just canceled?
It's canceled because the July date was actually the rescheduled date, but due to COVID impacts, they did have to cancel. And if I could, one more thing, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my staff and all of you for really working hard and diligently to pull this electronic public hearing together. We were a little nervous. I think it went relatively well. I hope it did anyway, but thank all of you as well. And thank you to my team. That's all I have, Chair Randall.
Thank you, Ms. Backman. So the only thing I have on the chair's comments is I need everyone to tell Chair Wheeler that this is not always what being an elected official looks like. I promise it's better. It's because she's the only one on the authority. This has been her introduction to being an elected official, and I'm so scared she's going to come in one day, turn her gavel in, and go, "This is not worth it," and walk away. So, and it's not always like this. It gets better. I promise it gets better. It's never like this. I'm so proud of you anyway. Just hang in there. Things are not this bad. we will meet again, and it will be good. And so everyone just send Chair Wheeler some love. She needs love right now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll take all the love I can get these days.
I'm sure. All right. Thank you, everybody. I think that is it. We have no closed session this evening, so we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.